Let me tell you something. There are days when the universe just lines up to test your patience, and then there are days when your neighborhood HOA president calls 911 screaming about terrorists on your land, and you realize the world's a lot stranger than you thought. That's what happened to me right here on my own ranch the day my daughter Riley came home from 2 years overseas just looking for a nap under the old oak tree. A hammock, a dusty backpack, a worn pair of boots, that's all it took to set off the biggest firestorm our little county's seen in a decade. You know what I mean? Some people just need drama the way the rest of us need air. I was fixing the east fence post, minding my own business, when I heard it, that shriek, high and sharp, the kind that grabs you by the spine and makes you set your tools down just in case. Over the rise, right where our fields butt up against the new subdivision, I saw her Vivian Blackwater HOA queen and self-appointed sheriff of all things petty. She stood in her yard in this neon pink yoga suit, iPhone raised like a pistol pointing at my ranch as if she'd just spotted Bigfoot dragging a body bag. I'm telling you, the woman has lost her mind over mailbox heights, driveway gravel, and Christmas lights, but today she looked ready to call in the National Guard. What set her off? My girl Riley, home on leave, first time back since her mom passed, first time sleeping in the shadow of the oak tree where Sarah used to read her stories. Riley strung up her military hammock, flopped her bag under it, and closed her eyes, finally at peace for a minute. Except it put her right in Viv's crosshairs. Turns out Viv spends her afternoons spying on folks from her upstairs bathroom, I guess. HOA power doesn't extend to minding your own business. Now Riley, she's not the teenager I sent off to boot camp. She came back lean tough with eyes that see through you, the kind of presence that makes you think twice before picking a fight. She's quiet now, measured, but if you cross her, you're likely to regret it. But all Viv saw was unknown suspicious person, probably because Riley's backpack looks like something out of a military movie. Viv called the cops screaming about terrorists, I kid you not, and just like that an innocent nap turned into a federal production. The sirens were coming before I could even process what was happening. I hustled over heart-pounding, not because I was scared, but because when you serve, you know how fast these things can go sideways. And Viv, she was standing at the edge of her yard chest, puffed out phone to her ear, yelling words like suspicious terrorist urgent threat. You'd think we were living in the middle of some Hollywood thriller. By the time I reached Riley, she was up alert, calm as ever, watching the circus unfold. Her gear was still under the hammock, nothing dangerous unless you count a set of tools the government doesn't exactly sell at Home Depot. The first squad car screeched up dust everywhere. Out stepped Sheriff Brad Kowalski, big guy with a bigger ego, walking like he was about to crack some major case. 2 more patrol cars rolled in, lights blazing, which honestly seemed a bit much for a girl napping on her own property. Riley stood up, relaxed jeans and a faded Marine Corps t-shirt, didn't matter. Kowalski swaggered over, hand on his belt, looking for trouble. "Ma'am, we received a report of suspicious activity. Gonna need to see some ID and an explanation," he barked. You could see he wasn't really talking to Riley. He kept glancing at Viv, who was vibrating at the property line, ready to pounce. Riley reached for her bag, slow, deliberate, and out came her military ID, then another badge that made the sheriff's face go pale. Marine Raiders. Not many civilians know what that means, but Kowalski sure did. He stepped back like she'd handed him a live grenade. "Captain Riley Sterling, Marine Special Operations Command. On leave, visiting my family." The tone in her voice, I wish you could have heard it, calm, clipped, but carrying weight that shut everybody up. Viv, of course, couldn't stand being outdone. She stomped over, binder in hand. I swear that thing is thicker than a phone book, and started waving it around. She's violating at least 12 HOA codes: unauthorized camping, improper use of recreational equipment. This is HOA property, and you owe us $45,000 in fees. I had to laugh even as my blood boiled. "Viv, this isn't your land. The boundary's clear as day, always has been." But Viv just grinned, flipping open her binder to a survey map that said my ranch had somehow become part of her subdivision. Now Riley was watching silent, taking in every word. She finally spoke cool and sharp. "We'll need 48 hours to review the legal documentation surrounding this dispute, Sheriff. That won't be a problem, right?" Suddenly, Kowalski was nodding along like a kid caught cheating on a test. Viv looked furious, but she backed down. For now. 2 days later, Viv showed up with half the HOA board, 2 lawyers, and worryingly, Sheriff Kowalski again. They spread their papers across my porch like they were laying out state secrets. Their evidence looked official, stamped and sealed, but Tommy Nguyen, a young scrappy attorney who'd caught wind of HOA fraud in the area, showed up right on cue. "This map's got holes bigger than a sieve," he said, laying out discrepancies, forged signatures, and most damning proof that Viv had tried the same scam on 24 other families. Things unraveled fast. Tommy and Riley, working side by side, dug up a network of forged surveys and fake fines, all leading back to Blackwater Development Holdings, Viv's company. They uncovered bribes to the sheriff, hush money, and enough evidence to keep a grand jury busy for months. But Viv fought back hard, launching a smear campaign on social media, painting us as threats to the neighborhood, twisting Riley's military service into something dark and dangerous. It got ugly fast. Local news ran wild with the story, and before we knew it, Colonel James Rodriguez, Riley's commanding officer, landed at our front gate in a government sedan. He called an impromptu press conference, tore Viv's lies to shreds, and announced that Riley was being recommended for the Medal of Honor for a classified rescue mission overseas. Suddenly, the narrative flipped my daughter a hero targeted by a bitter, power-hungry neighbor. And then came the twist. Nobody saw coming. Mrs. Dorothy Mallister, sweet old Dot from down the road, stepped up with a folder of evidence she'd quietly collected, recorded conversations, suspicious transactions, photographs of Viv and Kowalski plotting in secret. Turns out Dot spent 40 years as a court clerk. She knew what real evidence looked like. Her testimony broke the case wide open, and the feds moved in overnight. By sunrise, our road was packed with FBI vans, federal marshals, and local media trying to keep up. Viv's house got raided, documents and computers hauled out by the box. Sheriff Kowalski, desperate, live-streamed a full confession on Facebook blaming Viv for everything, but it was too late. The web had collapsed. Court was packed, standing room only. Viv in her orange jumpsuit, Riley in her dress blue's Medal of Honor ribbon shining on her chest. The prosecution laid it all out. 34 families targeted, millions, stolen lives upended. Viv's own surveillance tapes were played, her voice bragging about using fear to encourage compliance. The jury didn't even flinch. The sentence was brutal and deserved decades behind bars for Viv: total financial ruin, full restitution for her victims. The sheriff got a lighter deal for cooperating, but his career was dust. And Tommy, who revealed his own family, had been one of Viv's early targets, stood tall, his first big case personal as hell, and he brought the house down. After the trial, as I stood under that old oak with Riley's sun shining through the leaves, I finally felt peace again. The subdivision was being dismantled, families coming home, land restored to those who fought for it. I held a photo of Sarah, my late wife, and whispered, "She's home, honey. Our girl made it." You know, this story isn't just about beating a crooked neighbor. It's about standing up for what's right, no matter how ugly the fight gets. But here's the thing, even when justice wins, folks will still argue about what's fair, who's right, and whether the system works. So let me ask you, what would you have done in my boots? Where do you draw the line between neighborhood order and abuse of power? Drop your thoughts below. Let's get this debate started. And if you believe in real justice, share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because out here, the only way to keep the crazies in check is to shine a light on every last one of them.